All right, let's do a roll call, please.
Chairman Myjack,
Here.
Vice Chairwoman Thompson.
Here.
Member Burdette,
Here.
Member Tucker,
Here.
Member Walter.
Here.
Member Delgado,
Here.
Member Browning,
Here.
Alternate Member Young.
Here. Thank you. All right, so it appears we have a quorum. That's nice. I just did the Pledge of Allegiance out of order. Oh, well. I'll take a motion on approval of the minutes from the last meeting.
I move to approve the minutes from the April 9th meeting.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Show the motion passes. That brings us to petitions and requests from the public present.
Stan Johnston, and I sent you an email yesterday, the 13th, and it's retitled, it says, why doesn't our media publish, expose important front page real news such as photos, videos of cities, city managers, fire, police, council, and so forth? Closed doors, refusals to respond, and cover-ups of errors, nonsense, dishonesty, false reports, fraud, corruption, violations of laws. So what I sent you was an email like this, and this is photographic proof of the city's corruption. I think most of you have seen this already before. It has some photos of sewage flowing and so forth like that. Now, I want you to remember is that gosh, maybe it's been as much as a year ago, it's over a year ago, is that I had an overhead projection of a sewage spill. And what it was it had video also of manholes lifted because sewage was coming out of the manhole. Videos of that. And we had a sewage leak in Baker subdivision. It has Greenwood Street, Linda, Beatrice, Carroll, and so forth, streets. And I photographed a big puddle of sewage and so forth, and the city denied it. City denied we ever had a sewage problem. I contacted FDEP and everything. Everything's denied. This is unbelievable. So I want you to understand I've had a sign that says sewage spray and so forth like that. I've had so much criticism about that sign saying, that's happened a long time ago. The dishonesty continues. It continues. So I'm trying to warn you is that you cannot trust what the city is doing. And I've sent you this, which is my email is down right now. So I sent it. I made copies of this. What I meant to send you by email today. It says agenda item number 11. It's possible future agenda items. And at the bottom, number 18. I'll read it to you. It says problems having TEC facilitators such as Edie, Brad, Lilly, or whoever to have matters sent to or acted upon by council. And then I put example, and it doesn't even show there. But the example was our continuous toxic fluoridation of drinking water beginning in 1982. That I called Lilly about that, and she said when that 2 council meetings ago, she said it won't be presented until May the 13th. And that was yesterday. It didn't come off. It wasn't there. I complained to Mr. Myjack about that, and he's, I don't know how, but he doesn't feel good about it. But the thing is, I don't feel good about it. Because what this is asking, we understand is that the state is probably knocking out this fluoridation. But our request is very different. I think you'll agree with me. Don't remember your name. But you'll agree with me, but what happened is that the complaint from the TEC is that this special toxic type of fluoridation from the phosphate industry is toxic, and it's been here since 1982. This is horrible. This should be shown to the council, not just put under the rug. This is a serious item. I've listed a number of serious items here for future that you probably don't, some of you don't want them at all. But it's serious what's going on. The dishonesty and fraud, false reports, nonsense that's coming from this city is unbelievable. It's overwhelming to me. It's outrageous. And I come to you as not just a PE, but I'm a PE, professional engineer, and my duty, as per Florida statute, is to protect the health and safety of the public. The problem is our council is, instead of protecting the public, they're protecting something else. They're protecting the city from liability and so forth. That's what's happening here. It's completely nonsense. I'm ready to hear any questions or comments let's say, denials of what I'm saying. I'm ready to, let's say, defend what I'm saying. And I'll do it in court. They know I'll do it in court. They don't have their professional engineers to contest me because the professional engineers won't do it because I'll report them to the board if they do. It's all lies. So I'm here to receive your questions or comments.
So as far as just the matter of fluoride,
Yes, sir.
that is actually entirely out of council's hand now because of the Senate Bill 700 that ended up passing. It's out of everyone's hands because now it is being banned across the whole state of Florida. That specific compound in the water is I'm assuming each water plant is being advised to take it out. And so Mr. Cook, I believe on the 12th, announced that they would be complying with that.
Okay. So what I'm saying to you is I want to disagree with you, even though you have promoted this, is because I believe the item that we requested for them was to remove this particular type of fluoride. Let's suppose that they start again and saying, hey, we're going to allow fluoridation. That goes back. But what we're doing is what the TEC has.
You've had your chance already. You've asked your questions, and that was the only response you had from the board. This isn't a dialogue right now.
I think he's asked me a question. I think I should be able to answer it.
Did you ask Stan a question, Member Burdette?
I thought, well, in other words, he's saying something, well, I can't respond. In other words, you won't allow me to respond to what he said.
This is not the forum for which to do that. If
I
you'd
think
like
it
to
is.
have a discussion, we should do so afterwards. But you've had your 5 minutes to speak. You've heard that there's been a state law that's changed. It's going to be removed from our water, and that's the answer.
Okay.
Thank you, Stan.
I can
I'm
also
sorry, but I
add-
think,
Do you have
I
anything
think you
else,
should
Member Burdette?
understand that the city is doing some bad things, and this is one of them that's going on. Thank you.
in essence, it's the same end result that we wanted because it is being removed. It's just being removed a different way than we expected.
Not the result I wanted admission.
Instead of the council removing it, it's the Senate, the Florida Senate that is removing it, which in the end is actually better because it's removed. It's going to have to be removed from Cocoa as well. So even their water that we get won't have it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else from the public? Mary? Yes?
Mary Spar, Cocoa. I'm speaking under public comment tonight because I'm nervous about the fate of the multifamily canopy ordinance. And Brad told me that the multifamily canopy ordinance, the CRZ ordinance, and the native landscaping ordinance will all be discussed by City Council on May 27th to get direction from Council on the next steps. Now, at the last TEC meeting, staff floated a new version of the multifamily canopy ordinance, exempting all residential developments of 50 units or less from the requirement for tree canopy areas. This includes both subdivisions and multifamily units. In response, you voted to send to council a very different version incorporating a suggestion from Quai St. Ange that gave only exceptions to multifamily developments of 2 acres or less. These two versions are miles apart. Miles apart. Brad said he would send the TEC recommendation to council. It's going to be on May 27th, and that's all I know for sure. I've been a volunteer environmental activist for 30 years, and so I'm experienced in seeing trouble ahead. The fact is that staff is very influential with the city council, and it's also a fact that generally staff has more influence on council than TEC does. Not a good situation when staff's proposal is miles apart from the TEC recommendation. I did talk to Brad about the miles apart situation. I believe that staff is willing to try to work towards a creative solution that would be at least halfway okay with both sides, assuming that such a creative solution adequately addresses council's desire to encourage infill. I told him that Kay's idea was an attempt to come up with a reasonable exemption. And we wanted to be reasonable, and we're willing to consider other ideas. Now, what is needed to reach a reasonable creative solution to the multifamily canopy dilemma? I have 3 suggestions. First, provide clear definitions of duplex, townhome, and condominium in the land development regulations. Platting and ownership must be identified as part of each definition to avoid confusion. And there is confusion now, at least on my part. This suggestion is likely to resonate with everyone. Now, please bear with me on the second suggestion. It's complicated, and if you have questions, please ask later. This suggestion is to finish updating the Parks and Open Space Ordinance, which was initially authorized in February of 2019. A couple years later, at the February 22nd, 2022, 5:30 City Council meeting, Council agreed with the direction staff was proposing for this ordinance. Now, staff's idea included limiting the open space credit given for traditional stormwater ponds to 50% instead of the 100% given now. Actually, staff could additionally allow open space credit for LID stormwater features that incorporate trees. That would definitely encourage LID and blend in beautifully with the tree ordinance, which says, quote, canopy areas may include portions of low-impact development stormwater management features, incorporating existing and or planted trees and native vegetation. Now, at the moment, our object is to reduce the miles between staff's version of the multifamily canopy ordinance and TEC's. If we can encourage more tree canopy areas in ways that are doable in multifamily developments, some of the smaller multifamily projects would not need an exemption from the canopy requirements. Can I finish? I just have not too much more. Okay. Actually, I strongly suggest that TEC ask for an update on the Parks and Open Space Ordinance at a future meeting. The sooner the better. In summary, a reasonable creative solution to the multifamily canopy dilemma can be aided by finalizing the revision of the Parks and Open Space Ordinance. Third, base the solution to the multifamily canopy dilemma on data analysis. We can't just be throwing around language for multifamily infill development exemption without knowing what kinds of projects are being proposed and are likely to be proposed in the future. And Kay will address the data analysis. In conclusion, provide clear definitions for duplex, townhome, and condominium. Finish the Parks and Open Space Ordinance, hopefully in a way that blends with the tree ordinance and LID ordinance, and base any canopy requirement exemption on data analysis. Do you have any questions? Okay.
Do you have questions?
Go right ahead.
So- Mary, do you have something put together? It's like a template for us, for, so we got a starting point?
Okay. What I am sensing from staff, and this is Brad, is that he sees that these two versions are miles apart. He gets it. We're not on the same page. And he is looking for reasonable ideas to come closer together. He wants to do that. Now, obviously, it always pays to be reasonable, and I'm sure that the tree proponents would like to be reasonable as well. But the problem that we have is the scheduling. I mean, are we going to just dump this, our proposal on council, and who knows what he's going to say about, the staff's ideas without trying to get a little closer together? That I do not know, and I actually tried to find out by email, but I think Brad's been on vacation or something. Yeah. And so I haven't gotten any answer as to, whether what he's going to do about staff's version, but I did float the idea of that might be a little premature, and maybe we should put off that one ordinance only until a future date and when we can have a little bit more discussion, but that didn't fly. And I think that this thing is very complicated. It requires data analysis. To find a reasonable exemption for infill properties. I know staff has many tools to do this analysis. Now, Kay is going to show you a try that's made by a citizen. And we can do some of this. But if we could figure out what infill properties exactly we're talking about, maybe map them, and then try to come up with common characteristics for an exemption, a fair exemption for multifamily. I think it would be good, but maybe you could direct staff to work on some analysis. Data analysis, Kay's going to show you some, and then staff could certainly do some, but that would be good, and because that's what we need to see. And because I think that the common characteristic between staff and the tree proponents is we all want to be reasonable. So it's not an unsolvable problem. It's just that we're, coming right near a hard deadline of May 27th. And if TEC could ask for some data analysis, maybe show them what Kay's done, which she'll show you in a minute, that would be good. I do think that, in any version, these definitions at the end of the LDRs, there's a section for definitions, and I do think that they need to be clarified, which I believe staff also is in agreement with. Yeah, for clarifying definitions. Yeah. And then the other thing is when actually starting before the tree ordinance was passed, it dawned on me, because we were working on this for over 2 years, that the way to make the tree ordinance work well, we need to use 2 tools that the city has, and one was to use the PD zoning, because that requires 35% open space for these developments. Now, you can do a lot in 35%, and you have to do it, and it's not something that's just Titusville. You see this kind of requirement for PDs where they cluster the homes, and then save land as open space. And that is being widely used. But the other big tool we have, which has been stalled on the back burner since 2019, although in 2022, Brad had hoped that it would be coming back in a few months, is the Parks and Open Space Ordinance. Because what happens in that particular ordinance is the requirements for open space are stated. What can you count as open space? Most unfortunately, you can count traditional stormwater ponds at 100%. So you can fill, almost all of your open space with stormwater ponds. Well, of course, that's going to discourage trees, And staff had actually proposed to reduce that percentage from 100% to 50%, which would be a great improvement. Obviously you could do more, but let's be realistic. This is a provision that I've actually heard debated last year in Palm Bay. If it came down to 50%, you'd get a lot more LID, because what you need is the LID ordinance, the tree ordinance, and the Parks and Open Space ordinance to all be working together to promote the goals of the other 2 ordinances. We want Parks and Open Space, we want LID, and we want tree canopy, and they all need to work together. Just like the tree ordinance now works hand in hand with the LID ordinance, the Parks and Open Space ordinance needs to join that effort. So I would suggest that TEC ask for an update. You've asked for an update on a lot of ordinances, but nothing's happened on this one since 2022. As far as I know, Lily, you may know differently. I have no idea. That's all I know. Yeah. So that's my suggestions to you.
Lily, Mary raises a very good point when she answered Vice Chair's question. How many infill parcels do we have and what sizes and ranges are we talking about? Because if we're talking about, there's like 2 1/10 acre parcels here and a 1/4 acre parcel there, or maybe 2 acres here or there, that's not the kind of thing that you really are going to be able to put 50 units on. Those are really pretty small. So making it come down to 50 units basically means that anything under 4 or 5 acres would basically have no need for a tree ordinance. It would just be washed away. So I think her idea of doing a bit of data analysis and see how many parcels, infill parcels, do we really have of size and how many of each, so that we can get a hysteresis curve of what the challenge is. Because if it's being blown up that, oh, we've got to have at least 50 units for these small infill places, and there's 2, why are we making an ordinance for just such a fine, it's supposed to be across the whole city and equal. So that to me does not sound like a good ordinance if we were going to be doing something like that.
So are you asking to remove the infill part?
No. I'm saying that what Kay said, she said that we need to be doing some data analysis, and Mary. She indicated Kay's going to have some more for us, but this idea of doing this analysis to see how many of these infill parcels we do have available for build would be worthwhile in comparison to this overall discussion. Like when we talked about it, I explained it at, if you take any parcel, any rectangle, and cut it up into 6 pieces, one of those needs to be set aside for canopy. That's 16.6%. We are trying to achieve a canopy, well, the city council said 25%. We were hoping for closer to 40 when we developed the tree ordinance, and I think we could easily do 40, 45% in this city for an urban forest. I don't think that's out of the question. The trouble is going to be in how we get there.
Okay, I'm just trying to clarify the action that you want us to find all the infill properties that would be.
We're about to have a discussion about raising the minimum number of dwellings on an infill parcel to not have to deal with the tree ordinance and to basically waive the environmental plannings that would normally go around such a place.
Okay.
That would not be consistent with the development around it currently existing. That's one complaint that I have. But 2, if we're trying to achieve an overall canopy through the city, then anything that we do that is less than that goal of canopy is an error, is a mistake, is incorrectly done. So the way I'm looking at it, 16%, 1/6 of any parcel, pick whatever size you want, should be set aside for canopy for native vegetation. Now, it doesn't have to be a particular little square in the middle of another rectangle. It can be spread throughout the property, but the area, the size of it, needs to be equivalent to that. And the reason that I say that is that I think that should be where we draw a line in the sand. That should be enough degradation of the parcel. What happened off of Highway 50, where we go again, we clear everything except the measly little 5-foot perimeter, and it's moonscaped. And the viability of life in that area, or being able to restore living vegetation, is very difficult. And as long as we continue to work in this way, I think if we don't have the data to understand what it is that we're arguing about, then we're going to have a problem going forward with any ordinance. So I think what Mary's saying is that we should get a handle on the data. How many parcels are we talking about? When we talk about bringing down to 50 units, 50 units on what size acreage? are we talking about?
Okay, so you don't want this to go before council? Are you,
No, this is something I'm asking you to do for us. What's going to
Before it
council is
goes to
going to
council?
council. What I'm saying is that going forward, what Mary and I assume Kate, because she hasn't spoken yet, what they're talking about is that we don't have a good understanding of the data that we're talking about building on, do we? We don't have a collection right now. We can't say there's 134 properties and they range in size from this to that with a median and we don't know that data. We don't have that analysis. We could be arguing about something that might be generally moot. You know, if there's a ton of parcels, but they're all less than a quarter acre, you're not gonna get 50 units in a quarter acre. So basically what you're doing is stripping this ordinance from that parcel. And as I said before, if our goal is to get a canopy through the city, then I think the 16% or 1/6 of any piece that gets built needs to be landscaped. It needs to be native landscape, it needs to have canopy. Okay? And this is a way to get there. It's first to understand the data of what it is that we're asking. If Brad's coming to us and saying we need 50 units for an infill to make it viable, I want to know what size parcel and why he can't leave 1/6 of it for canopy. It doesn't make sense to me.
I have the 2 acres listed for the one that's going to council. I don't know.
That's what we proposed.
Right.
But what staff is proposing is that less than 50 acres, it's a wash.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chairman, I have a question for you.
Yes, sir.
I thought we sent something different to the staff and asked them to, or directed them, or recommended to them to send what we had spelled out earlier
Yes,
to council.
yes.
It sounds like there's some information that I'm not aware of, that's going to change, and that's not what's going to be put before council. That staff is going to go ahead and put this threshold of 50 units out there. Am I missing something?
As I understand it, and correct me if I'm wrong, Lily, but that's going to be staff's version, and this is going to be our version, and they're both going to be presented to council. And as Mary said, they're miles apart. Let's wait until we get ourselves, please.
I don't
Well,
have a
the-
version that's with the 50. I'm looking at
You're looking at what we proposed.
this, yeah, I'm looking at Brad's binder, and I don't have one that says 50. I don't know, but he's also not here, so I don't want to speak for him.
I have a question.
So, Mr. Chairman, so have we heard that staff is going to present their version in contradiction to what we had asked to be submitted to council?
I don't know what staff's going to present. And I don't think Lily knows what staff's going to present because
I'm not
Brad's going to be the one presenting it, right?
Yeah.
So you had a question?
Yeah, I do. If this is going to council on May 27th, we don't have time for staff to gather information for us. I mean,
This is for future work. This is for future work that we're going to be doing. We've already put forward our best effort to city council on what we believe, and that's the 2 acre
2 acres.
size.
Yeah.
That made a lot of sense to me, as does setting, a certain amount of canopy that the city council said that they were going to require. Why it doesn't need to be required across the board, I don't know. I know that they're going to be talking about it on the 27th, and I understand from Brad that he's pushing this 50 unit minimum. Less than 50 units or up to 50 units, it doesn't apply. And I disagree with that because I think the whole idea is to add canopy through the city, and everybody needs to have trees around them. I mean, the whole city needs to be not a heat island, in my opinion, but that's.
But if council goes ahead and they go with the 50 units, what good is this research that we're going to ask staff to
Because
spend time on if they already run over us?
if they come back and they show that this affects all of 2 properties, then I've got to ask them why this was so important.
Yeah, but they're not going to have time to do that analysis before May 27th. And we're not going to be able to look at it. I think, unless we can propose that this not go before city council on May 27th so that staff has time to do that analysis, that makes sense.
That would
But-
give us time to do the parks and open space query as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're going at this way too fast, but I also get the sense that council wants to move forward with this, and the developers and everybody wants to move forward with this because they want to cram as many units on a piece of property as they possibly can. And
Member Delgado?
Madam Chair, you done?
yes, I'm done.
Okay, just want to make sure.
Yeah.
This should not be us against staff, staff against us. I believe that the right way to do this is to take it off the calendar for the next date and have a back and forth, whether it be our next or a special meeting, whatever it needs to be required, if developers are pushing and all of that. I can understand that they're on a timeline, but it should never be us against staff or staff against us. That's not what needs to go to council, and I think we need to ask that it be taken out of the schedule in order for us to get with Brad and see, in the name of reasonableness, what is it that we're calling reasonableness? Okay, and so I think it's very important that we define what that is. Right now, what we have is one version versus the other, and we're asking council to make a choice. And the city should not be run that way.
I think I can clarify a lot of this discussion if you'd give me a chance.
Of course,
Yes?
but I stand by what I said.
Yes,
Okay.
indeed.
Member Walter, you still had your light on. Do you want to let Kay go or show?
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. Whatever gets done on the 27th, we can still compile information and recommend an amendment to anything that they do.
That's right.
If we find out that something works better. I agree, it's not, we don't have to make a decision tonight, this month, but we need more information from staff on,
The same thing came up when Stan was talking about the ponds and the fountains. We got to get rid of all the fountains and all the ponds. And how many do we have? 12. It was not a monstrous problem, and most of them had already been replaced, so. All right, Kay, please, sorry for the.
Fine.
Thank
Kay
you,
St. Ange, Maryland Avenue, Titusville, Tree Team. Let me just clarify, Mary met with Brad, and he said that May 27th, it would not be going to council for a first reading. It would be a discussion. Right, to discuss all the different options. And yes, in the past with the tree ordinance, oftentimes council was presented with various versions, a TEC version, a P&Z version, a staff version, and council had needed to discuss all these different versions, and that is why we're concerned that they will be bringing up staff's version. And staff's version says all residential developments with greater than 50 units are required to meet the minimum requirements of preserving total canopy area. So staff's version says nothing about infill. It does not say anything about infill. It just says all residential developments, which would include subdivisions, which is what the tree ordinance is about, with greater than 50 units are required to meet the minimum requirements of preserved and total canopy area. So he's not specifying infill, and he's not delineating that it's multifamily. He's saying all residential developments, which would undermine the tree ordinance that is currently subdivisions. Those residential developments that are divided into plats, as you know. So I just wanted to clarify that. But back to what I had intended to say. On January 14, 2025, the city adopted an ordinance stating that City Council desires to encourage development of infill lots to reduce urban sprawl. This is what the ordinance says. City Council desires to encourage development of infill lots to reduce urban sprawl, maximize efficient use of existing infrastructure, and reduce impact to existing natural areas by decreasing setbacks from multifamily, medium, and high-density residential properties 2 acres or less, consistent with the future land use policy 1.77 defining infill development. So council adopted that ordinance defining infill. Okay? And TEC picked up on that, and I suggested to you 2 acres or less. And so on the next day, 1 day later, TEC met, and you recommended approval, and on April 9th, again, recommended sending on to council a draft multifamily canopy ordinance stating section 3031B1, residential subdivisions, including townhomes and multifamily projects, excluding single duplex units on properties 2 acres or less, and multifamily projects on properties 2 acres or less that satisfy the comprehensive future land use element policy 1.77 for infill development and are required to meet the minimum requirements of preserved and total tree canopy areas. So both the January 14 infill ordinance that council adopted and TEC's draft multifamily canopy ordinance define infill lots as being 2 acres or less that satisfy the comprehensive plan 1.77. That's why I suggested the 2 acres or less. So they're in agreement that that's what an infill is. But Brad's residential residential developments with greater than 50 units says nothing about infill whatsoever. So you need to have that clear in your mind. TEC, by recommending this multifamily ordinance on January 15th and again on April 9, is encouraging multifamily infill by excluding them from canopy requirements. They're going along with council. Yes, council wants to encourage multifamily infill, and TEC, yes, let's encourage them by excluding them from canopy. So now we're understanding that there are many vacant infill properties in Titusville that could be developed multifamily. Many. The West Titusville has lots and lots of them over there where Tony lives. Yeah, many of them west of the railroad track. So today I provided you with a chart that I spent hours and hours on by comparing the city's website that's called Applications Under Review. I hope most of you have seen that. As of May the 12th, 2025, I compiled this information. I was able to get the acreages off by comparing it to the Brevard Property Appraiser site, right? So I made this chart. This is what is currently being reviewed at this time. This is a snapshot in time. Virtually all, if not all of these developments, and it includes multifamily developments as 3 categories: multifamily, townhomes or condos, and single family. Virtually all of these have already started the review process, and so they're grandfathered in place. No new ordinance will apply to these. This is a snapshot for you to see how much is currently being reviewed of these different types. So the first page is all apartment complexes. Those in red is what the TEC version would provide exclusion for canopy requirements. Those that are in blue is what specifically the staff version would exclude, but also because staff version says less than 50 units, you can see the red ones would be excluded by staff as well. And the second page, I've taken out the townhomes or condos because townhomes, my understanding is that they are subdivisions, they're platted. That's how I've always understood it, and that's how I've seen the city working, is that townhomes are owned by the person who owns that little piece of land, and therefore they're a subdivision, and the tree ordinance as it is right now applies to townhomes and condos. I do believe that, but Brad is not here to ask him that question. Lily, do you know? Okay, so that ordinance, that whichever version goes forward, even if no version goes forward, I think the LDRs need to have a definition of townhomes. And I heard Brad say that he wanted to provide clarity on the definition of townhomes. Are they subdivisions? Do they meet the qualifications of the current tree ordinance that says residential subdivisions must meet tree canopy? I believe that's how the city has been applying the tree ordinance, that townhomes, I've even spoken in front of city council when there was a rezoning and said that this development is townhomes and therefore they must preserve 25%. And the developer was sitting right there, didn't contradict me. So I don't know for sure. That's why we need a clarification. That's why we need a definition. So the second page has the listings of current townhomes and condos being reviewed and being built right now. These are already going forth. Then at the very bottom, the last segment of page 2 and page 3 are the single-family subdivisions being built right now. Virtually, I believe all of these were grandfathered in with the tree protection ordinance. They were already being reviewed, and therefore the tree protection ordinance has not been applied to these. The only one exception might be this Falcon Roost, but it doesn't have any trees on it to begin with, so it's not really a big issue. So I hope you'll take the time and thoroughly understand this. If you read the part at the top, you'll see that the red is what the TEC version will exclude from canopy. The blue and the red is what staff will, because it just so happens that all of these that are in red are less than 50 units. That's not all the, but now when you get to the townhomes, some of these, they're 42, 48, 36, 32, 28 units. And so they also would be excluded by staff's version. So there's a lot of data here. It may take you a little while to look at it. I've spent, I would say, 5 hours compiling it. I made one version and then I said, this is not good enough, got to do it again. Yeah, so please do take the time to look at it and consider it. The most, I do want to say there are advantages and disadvantages to infill. I've spent some time on the websites all throughout the country talking about the advantages and disadvantages of infill. The disadvantages is that in the urban center, it increases urban temperatures, right? It increases flooding, increases polluted runoff. These disadvantages can be mitigated by tree canopy requirements. And that's what we're trying to do, right? Isn't that what we're trying to do? And yes, I do believe that in high density areas, even multifamily high rises can provide tree canopy, because I've seen it when I go to fancy hotels in urban centers where they have all this landscaping so that they'll attract their hotel clientele. Well, we want to have such beautiful multifamily apartment buildings too, whether it's dense or whether it's out in a little bit more in the outskirts. We want beautiful canopied multifamily, whether it's high rises or not. So I would suggest to you highly that some of you go to the May 27th City Council meeting and speak your mind. Tell them why you want these 3 ordinances adopted. Express to them why your recommendations are warranted, and include that to comply with the comprehensive plans, policies to preserve and protect trees and native vegetation. These 3 ordinances need to go forward, but maybe not the multifamily that night. Maybe the multifamily needs to be tabled and reconsidered. Maybe all 3 need to be tabled and put together as a package. That is up to you, but I will also be there and asking that council do what is right for the trees and for the natural environment, to the best of my knowledge anyways. So that's what I have for you tonight. If you have any questions, I hope I cleared up a little bit of what was being discussed. And if I went too fast, forgive me.
When you said 3 ordinances, which 3 were you referring to?
The multifamily CRZ and the native plants, those 3 are, according to Brad, and Mary talking with Brad, I wasn't there, but Mary gave me a blow-by-blow. She said that that's what he said, that all 3 would be presented to council. That's always subject to change, though, you know. Sometimes they table things at the last minute because their agenda's so full. But that's what he said, it was gonna be discussed, not a first reading, but a discussion.
See where they want to go.
Those were the 3 ordinances that Kimley Horn reviewed, and we spent a great deal of time discussing at the last meeting.
Fixing it, yeah, I remember.
Does anybody have any questions or have
Any questions
had
for
anything I
Kim?
had to say?
Thank you for doing this chart.
Yes,
It's
very
really
Okay.
helpful.
I hope
really
it's helpful to
eye-opening.
you.
Thank you.
I do want to make sure that you understand they are probably already grandfathered in. They're in the works. But it is a snapshot in time, so to speak. Okay, thank you.
Okay. So Lily, about this parks and open space ordinance, where are we with that?
It's not in my binder, so I don't think it's coming up
We should
on the
maybe
May.
poke the bear and find out where it is. It's been idle for too long.
Yeah,
I also really appreciate having a good definition for duplex, condo, and townhome. I think that's pretty clear. And I liked what Mary had to say about the relationship between the tree ordinance and the open space and recreation ordinance as well, and how they tie together. So it may be that some of the definitions that we put in that one might help clarify how they all fit together. So can we work on those, getting those definitions put into ordinance?
can I, an emotion?
Okay. Would somebody care to make that motion since I'm the chair? What I'd like to see is I would like to see in ordinance definitions for duplex, condo, and townhomes. As Mary suggested, that would help clarify some of our other ordinances.
Do we want to impose more work on staff before we get these, what we're working on now, resolved? Or should we try to focus on what we're working on now so that we don't get sidetracked and we get what we're working on now taken care of before we recommend any further action and work for staff and us?
I think the request from Mary is valid, and I don't see it as work for us or interfering with our work. This is something that we've noted now that needs to be addressed, and I think a recommendation from the commission to staff that we need to get these definitions in the ordinance would be helpful. That doesn't interfere with our future work. It might actually help.
Mike,
Yes,
But-
sir.
come the end of the month, they're gonna be talking about 2 sets of papers
Yes,
that are not that remotely the same.
I know.
Okay, and so, one, I agree with Laura Lee that adding more stuff may not be the right timing, but that's a timing issue. Okay, so I'm not really arguing with you on that, but
We've already made that decision last month.
we did.
I'm not talking about changing anything
No.
we've done before. I'm talking about what we're going to be doing going forward. And I think going forward, we need to have definitions for condos, townhomes, and whatever the heck it was.
Right, that bunch.
Yeah.
Okay, but I go back to the meeting at the end of the month.
Our meeting?
No.
Or city
The
council's
council meeting.
That's out of our hands.
Well, no, we can
We can.
recommend to staff, since they themselves, the wording that was used was to come together in reasonableness. Okay, I don't think we're there. I don't think they're there. Okay, and so, again, what I'm trying to avoid is council having to, even in a discussion, choose this or that.
Okay.
Okay, I don't think we're there. I think we need to come closer to whatever middle Brad and the staff has done and what we've done. We know what we've done. And so, to me, the more logical path is to take it off the agenda and get with Brad and see all the pieces that he wants to put together versus our pieces, and see how that goes and see how we can get there. And that's what I would like to aim for, is to, even at the discussion phase, go in with very few items that perhaps we may be apart.
Okay.
So, I can make a motion that,
Floor is yours.
that we request that this be taken off the calendar.
What this? What
Well-
this?
The multifamily,
The 2 acre?
the 2 acre, okay? And so for further discussion with staff, since staff has a different view of that world, so that we can come closer to present to council a more united front.
Want to have a workshop?
Again, you call it,
You got the floor. I'm
we-
just suggesting.
okay?
It's your motion. so-
We can have a workshop with staff. We can have a special meeting
Yeah.
with staff, since they come. and they
Brad
work with-
said that we can call a workshop and have it the hour before our regular meeting.
Okay, so again, I think a workshop will be the way to go if the rest of the commission agrees. But the first item will be, I would like to make a motion to ask that this item be tabled at the next meeting, and that we find a slot to have a workshop with staff to go over our differences, if you want to call it that. Okay? So,
There's a difference between tabling it and removing it from the city council's agenda. I think you want
Removing
to
it.
remove it. Yeah,
yes,
okay.
please. Thank you.
Withdraw.
Or withdraw. There you go. We're asking staff to withdraw
We
that
have
item.
2 or 3 before city council.
You'll still have the critical root zone discussion and the native vegetation requirement discussion going on. City council will have plenty of stuff to discuss on May 27th if we pull this one item out of the 3.
Right. So,
I would think about what motion we're working on here.
we're working on the motion.
Well, I can't make a motion.
No,
I'm
he
the chair.
cannot make a motion, but I'll make a motion that we request that the multifamily will be taken out of the agenda for the next city council meeting.
Well, it's not just multifamily, because that has crossed over into single-family residential, which, as Mary pointed out, will be not good for the tree
Okay,
canopy ordinance, so.
Again, help me out with
I
the,
don't know what you call what staff has come up with, but,
exactly.
whoa.
Staff has papers. Mary?
All right, so what I think you're asking is that there, on the item that he's planning on bringing to council on the 27th of May, which will be a discussion of 3 ordinances recommended by TEC, that is the CRZ, the multifamily canopy, and the native plant one, that out of those 3, that before he finalizes the agenda, and this would not be just a decision of Brad, but of other people in the city administration as well, to remove that plan to discuss the multifamily canopy ordinance. And that what there would be is two ordinances that would be up for discussion that, like Laura Lee said, is the CRZ ordinance and the native plant ordinance. And then you can go from there in an effort to come up with something reasonable.
Well, we can't keep calling it the multifamily ordinance because what staff is suggesting has taken it out of the realm of multifamily.
That may be all
50
true.
units.
That may be true. That is very true. That is a very good point. And that's why we need to have a discussion about what is reasonable. Is that reasonable? That's one of the questions to ask about what can we agree on is reasonable. I believe that that subject may be able to be resolved at a workshop.
So,
Sir,
okay, let me see if I can translate all of that, okay? And please join me in correcting me. But what I would like to make a motion that we request staff to remove the item for multifamily out of the discussion
from the 26th agenda,
on the 26th agenda.
27th,
pardon.
and bring it back to a workshop with the
And
TEC
bring
and
and bring
staff.
it back to TEC and have a workshop with us to resolve
The differences.
any differences.
That sound good to you? Is there a
Yeah,
second?
except I still have heartburn over calling it multifamily. Couldn't we call it the tree canopy protection discussion?
I'm good with that. It's
No,
just that
I would
I don't
not.
know what they're
It-
calling it.
Huh?
With Lily?
It is labeled the multifamily canopy
Yeah, that's what I
ordinance
thought.
under everything.
Right.
Well, that's a good,
Yeah,
okay,
that's what I didn't want, to change titles and then they get confused.
that sounds good to me.
They have done that in the past.
All right, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, Laura Lee seconds for discussion.
Okay.
Now we can talk about it. Anybody have an opinion? Don't be the first one to hit your button. Have we had enough discussion? Maybe we don't need any more. All right, let's call the question. Shall we do a roll call on this one? Yes. All right. Yes, please.
Member Burdette?
Yes.
Member Delgado?
Yes.
Member Browning?
Yes.
Member Tucker?
Yes.
Vice Chairwoman Thompson?
Yes.
Member Walter?
Yes.
Member Majak?
Yes. Okay. Anything else for petitions and requests?
I have a short announcement.
All right. Bring it up, Kay.
Oh, okay.
Why not? Before we get into the next
I
one.
wanted to say it when I stood up, but I didn't want to disrupt the flow of thoughts, you know. June 18th, at the Isaac Campbell Community Center and Park, the tree team is going to have a tree planting event, and the children of the community center will be participating in tree planting. 30 trees will be planted, live oaks and wax myrtles. And these little children, there are 60 of them, ages 5 to 12, will be participating. And their parents are invited. You are invited, yes. And I've sent some of you emails, and I will send the rest of you emails about this June 18th at 10 o'clock. It's a Wednesday. I know some of you have to work, but if you can, consider coming and participating. This will be once we plant these 30 trees, we'll have planted 200 trees in city parks of Titusville. So it's a big event, and we're also going to be having two interactive lessons the week before for the children so that they will understand fully why it is that we are planting trees in the park, why we're asking them to help us plant trees, so that they understand how it is that trees benefit and that they will be able to watch these trees grow throughout the years and receive the benefits of them. So again, Wednesday, June the 18th at 10 o'clock at the Isaac Campbell Park and Community Center. Thank you.
Thank you, Kate. All righty then. On to the Native Municipal Tree Canopy Landscape Management Trust Fund. Anybody like to jump in and lead off? Member Browning, per se? I think you had some studies on this, did you not?
You would like me to lead the discussion, Chairman?
If you're ready, if you feel like it. I'm just looking for somebody to get it started.
Mr. Chairman, you brought this item to the TEC,
I
right?
did, yes. I brought it to the TEC because I remember back in '96 when the St. Johns River Water Management District told all of the cities along the Indian River Lagoon that excess stormwater was a problem and that our lagoon had too much fresh water, and the terms being used were poisonous amounts at the time. And so they decided to do a desal plant to try to remove fresh water, and that failed. So they came down with a mandate that indicated that the cities should all do more to try to reduce runoff, and part of that was to plant trees, and they created a mitigation fund for trees that were taken out. And any tree 6 inches or larger at that time was paid a mitigation fee whenever the land was cleared. This took time. You'd have to do a tree survey first to find out where all the trees were, how many there were, what sizes they were. They had to be located, and then they would be mowed down. Well, when we created the tree preservation ordinance, part of the parlay between development and the tree team was how are we going to actually do that? How are we going to come to terms together? And that was one of the things that kind of went by the wayside.
So last month, we had a discussion about these funds going into the, what are we calling our current
Well,
repository of,
it got moved into basically a beautification fund.
yeah, it's a beautification
The city
fund,
then used to create the entryways there on Highway
Which-
50.
which leads to the one overarching thought that I've had, probably because this is more in line with my expertise, and that's that these funds, instead of going to beautification wholly or in part, mostly, if not wholly, need to be dedicated to promoting large canopy shade trees. Those are the workhorses for stormwater management. And when we extract funds from developers for taking down trees, most of that money needs to be devoted towards putting back large canopy shade trees in those places throughout the city where, in conjunction with everybody, all the stakeholders, it needs to be prioritized where those large canopy shade trees are developed. It's good for business. It's good for, the way Public Works manages their department, particularly stormwater management. We couldn't do anything better than take whatever money we can get and devote it towards large canopy shade trees. There are some other elements of this Landscape Management Trust Fund where we talked about, native ground plane, and we talked about rain gardens and things like that. To me, not having the tree ordinance where we want it yet, those ground plane items are diversions. They're digressions that I wish we wouldn't get into, to be honest with you, because we haven't covered large canopy shade trees like we should have, long time ago. So my preference would be to take any of these funds that are now going towards beautification and put them towards an urban forest program that could include everything from hiring a forester to manage the program, maintenance to a lot of other things, and then come up with some other means for funding beautification.
Well, the city council has already decided that half of the fund is going to continue in their beautification realm, and half of it can come back to us. So this, in a sense, is that policy that we're trying to craft. How this should work, how this should function, and include things like, well, we had talked about putting rain gardens in with citizens who want to have it done. We can provide maybe a grant of 50% funding or something like that through some of these funds. Yes, there will be enough income to actually hire somebody full-time to run and manage our urban forest. If you just count the money that we have coming in now, $88,000 is more than enough to pay for somebody to run our urban forest in Titusville. And that's just from this fund alone. And there's still other resources to go. So having somebody on staff that would be responsible for the urban forest, it would help plant that urban forest, plan where it goes, be a participant in the overall planning of how this is going to grow out, I think is paramount to what this is the resource. This is where the funds get scraped off the road, and we have to figure out how to bring them back to make the city grow again and live again. You know, because we're losing it left and right. We don't even count the number of trees we take down. We only count the number that we plant. And that's kind of like what the BMAP does with taking care of the lagoon. It only looks for PNN and it doesn't look for fresh water or anything else that's
We
going
don't count the trees we take down?
We don't count the trees we take down.
Then how do we determine how much money is to be charged in fees to the developer?
Because we only count the trees that are larger than 24 inches or whatever, wherever the fine, 20 inches.
Over
whatever
the
fine becomes.
minimum threshold?
Yes, minimum threshold. Used to be 6 inches, now it's 3 times that size. So we've lost a lot of income from the development community as far as impact goes by changing this from 6 inches to 20. That was a real concession on our part, on the trees part.
I'd like to hear what Kay had to say about the 50-50 split, because I thought the 50-50 split was still in place. Do you think it's not? No. Why?
Okay. I admit I'm old and my memory is a little foggy sometimes, but April 8th, City Council heard Landscape Trust Fund advisability. It was in the consent agenda for April 8th. And what they were asking is that a certain amount, $65,000, no, wait a minute. They were asking that some of the Landscape Trust Fund be utilized to match the urban forestry grant, okay? So they needed, I think it was $65,000 from the trust fund to go to match the urban forestry grant. And at that time, there was a discussion about how much money was in the Landscape Trust Fund, and then there was a discussion about, well, did the ordinance change, the resolution regarding the Landscape Trust Fund, did it change at some point so that only 50% of it was going to be used for planting trees in public places? And they said, no, that never actually occurred.
Yes, it did.
Well, that's what they said at the City Council. So that's something you need to find out from staff. All I can report is what I heard, and like I said, I told you from the beginning that I have a foggy brain, and I didn't bring all those notes about it, but that's when the discussion was held, April 8th, and we can look back on that City Council meeting. It was under consent agenda items, Landscape Trust Fund, and you can find the details.
It was long
So-
before April that I heard.
Yeah, I think the 50% is still there because, I mean, we beat this up. You know, we had like $600,000 or $700,000 in the landscape trust fund, and then they wanted to do all these gateway projects. And the TEC was saying, no, the money's supposed to be spent on canopy trees. That's what got taken down. That's what it should be used for. And the city council said, no, we're going to use all of the money to do these gateway things. And then after the gateway things are finished, then we're going to split it 50-50 with you guys. That was
Well before April.
2 years
I know
ago.
that. But in April, they said, if, you know, unless I'm just dreaming this, that indeed that 50-50 decision that TEC recommended, 50% for the canopy trees, was never implemented. It was never actually adopted by council, is what they said.
It would be good if we could find out, because we don't want to go on that assumption and then get blindsided.
April 8th, watch
Yeah,
the video.
I know that, but
recording.
staff might be wrong.
Yeah.
They may be incorrect. As far as I remember, that was the deal. We're going to spend
We were sitting
every
in council
dime
chambers
of
when
the,
vote was taken.
yeah. They said, we're going to spend every penny of the landscape trust fund. And we're going to do these gateway projects, which, by the way, are already full of weeds and they're not even been being
considerable money.
maintained.
There's considerable money in the trust fund, and the gateway projects have been funded, is what I understand. As of August 28, 24, there was $640,000 in there. Now, I believe that some of it has been used for the gateway, but those are staff should have that information at your fingertips. So, all I'm saying is you need to look into it, okay? I think that the story might not be.
Yeah, well, we need clarification.
There you go.
You know, is the landscape 100% now to be spent on canopy trees, or is it still 50-50? And I think we need clarification on that. And if it is still 50-50, I think we need to fight to get 100% of the landscape trust fund back into
Landscape.
urban forest, our urban forest, and not
agree.
planting flowers out by I-95.
At least it's not cordgrass drawn in the gopher
Right.
tortoises.
You know, and basically, when we find out what we are actually entitled to, then I think that whatever the landscape trust fund, it should be replaced with this, along with, I would like to see, member Myjack's version, I'd like to see member Burdett's suggestions incorporated into member Myjack's version, so that we're looking at one document
Yes.
instead of trying to go back and forth, looking at two documents. That would be helpful. But I guess we need to discuss member Burdett's suggestions
That would be
and make
good.
sure that we like them. I mean, I like them,
Mm-hmm.
but I would like to see the two documents combined. But I think we need to get more aggressive about the landscape fund, because it got hijacked and it's not being used for what it was supposed to be. And then we still, I don't think, have ever resolved with council how the $2 per capita from the
Tree board.
tree board, how that's supposed to be spent. That never was resolved either.
No, that's
Is it-
supposed to be our decision, I think.
Well, is it still gonna be used for streetscaping and trimming?
I thought that was a
trees?
separate account.
It is. It's a totally separate account, or it's not an account. It is a requirement for us to be a tree city, but what the tree city would like for those funds to be spent on, city's not spending them on that. I mean, those funds could be used for an arborist, absolutely. But the city is using those funds just to do tree maintenance, like tree trimming or taking out a dead tree or, you know.
That's something that could change when a urban forest professional gets on board.
All right, shall we go through Member Burdett's additions or suggestions here?
Okay, before we do
Oh,
that,
before we do that, okay,
Please.
yes. Member Delgado.
this year alone and last year, I've been asking for the sheet of paper that says, here's the money, this is the money, this is how much we spent trimming, this is how much we spent on maintenance, this is how much we spent on the gateways and all of that. And we've never gotten that. This is why we keep talking about 50% or 2% or whatever. And Brad was here 2 meetings ago, and we had a discussion about that. I believe you had just started.
Yeah, I sent you guys an email on the 10th, April 10th, about where I saw the estimate of the fund you're talking about. The 65,000 that she's talking about is a separate fund that sunsetted and got merged into. So there were two, now they're one, and that's all I know.
Right, but that doesn't resolve the big questions on that budget. Okay, there's got to be some, in accounting, the city of Titusville, somebody's keeping track of that money.
So an audit of the account.
And so, short of an audit, requesting an audit of that fund, I think that should be made available back to us.
Can you clarify, and I can try and find it? That's not
Well,
what's captured
we
in the
keep
email that I
talk-
was talking about?
Yes,
I have it at home on my computer. I can send it to you.
Okay.
I know exactly where it is.
but that's part of the discussion that needs to happen, but everyone using the same numbers. And I don't think that has happened. We've gotten pieces here and pieces there, and conversations here and conversations there, and some data being sent, but there is no accounting sheet that says, for 2024, this is how much money we collected, this is how much money we spent, this is how we spend it. And I remember last year, we did get something similar, but it wasn't granular enough to even get to where Mike is talking about. That's when we were talking about how to create or develop what this fund is going to do. So if you could help us out trying to get that, and I'm sure Laura Lee has it in her computer, but like I said, I would like to see that.
Yeah, maybe if she can send me that, I can look at it, because,
Okay.
yeah, I don't,
Yeah, and
Yeah, I'll send that to you. Now, this was a thing that I think Kevin Cook put together, or maybe Bill Klein put it together, but it has columns and then it has.
yes, I remember
This is-
that one.
Yeah, that's what I have, and it shows where we planted 0 trees some years, 2 trees some years. It was very sparse as far as tree planting and the types of things. The money was being spent basically on maintenance. The regular maintenance that the city should be doing anyway. But I'll send that to Willie when I get home tonight.
Okay, Member Walter, you're up next.
I mean, does anybody have a definition of this account? Where the money should be spent? I mean, originally it must come up with something.
Originally, it was called the Native Tree Mitigation Fund or Trust Fund. And that got morphed about 10 years later into a beautification fund that allowed them to spend it on things other than just canopy trees. And now we're trying to pull that part of it back. In addition, we, as the Tree City Tree Board, been designated, we're required to have a $1 Was it $2? $2 per capita
Okay.
as a budget for our urban forest efforts. With 50,000 people, that's roughly 49,000 people, 900, it's roughly $99,000 that we should have in an annual budget that we can decide how to spend for our urban forest. And my thinking would be a good portion of that would be first paying for somebody to manage our forest, because maintenance is the biggest issue going forward.
Correct.
And then the rest, as it accumulates over the years, would then be how we would apply that maintenance and apply future plantings, perhaps using the Mayaka method or something like that. You know,
okay.
where we have a focused means or methodology. Anybody? Right. So shall we? All right, Member Burdette, you wanna take off on your section here?
Yeah, so when I first started drafting this, I wasn't exactly sure what the scope of the trust fund was. So some of it might be very much just ideas, but nonetheless, they're still there. One of them is already being implemented by Public Works. The tree boxes, they've already been doing projects and building tree boxes. So that's one method that's already being done. Other than that, I had briefly talked in one of our other meetings about the tree map. But I also had thought a little bit more about it, because there is kind of an issue of public versus private. But my thought on that was if we could involve private citizens in, if they ask someone to come and map theirs, that's how we can actually estimate like the stormwater discount or something like that that you've mentioned before. So we actually can gauge how much stormwater their land or what they have planted takes up. Let me see what else here. One of the other things was the Milwaukee forests, or basically rapid reforestation. This would be just something to use in like high runoff areas to mitigate. I think it would be useful just as a general tool for areas. Otherwise, there's also public-private sponsorships. If we can get any of the bigger companies to help us in helping the environment, that would be awesome. Because they're here doing business, and they like doing business here. But if we can get them involved in helping us, that'd be awesome. Most of what I have is all written out. Some of it's more integration, how to put this onto the other document. But I also tried to put down the application of how it would apply to Titusville as well. Let me know if anybody has questions about it too.
Yeah, the tree boxes have been a question of mine. Do they, and this might be more of a question for Member Browning, do the tree boxes limit the overall growth of the tree?
They can, if they're not designed with an arborist input. Yeah, trees need a certain volume of soil to do well in an urban environment. And I haven't studied the tree boxes that we have going in now. Since 800 and something thousand grant, is that right, where they came from?
I have to ask Lily, I don't know.
I don't
Came
remember.
from the Save Our Indian River Lagoon Fund.
Oh, Sorrel Fund, okay.
Information on that.
Please, if you can add it, Kay.
May 13th. Council agreed to an amendment to add additional sums to the Sorrel grant for the tree boxes, to boost it from 25,000 to 26,800. But it also says that on July the 23rd, 2024, City Council approved a grant agreement between the City of Titusville and the State of Florida DEP in the amount of $467,760 towards the same project. Oh, that's big time money. So now we're talking about almost $500,000 towards these tree boxes. And according to this report to council of that day, May 13, 50% is complete. I interacted with Sandra Reller about this over a year ago when they were first considering these tree boxes, and she sent me this information. And you're welcome to it, because I have it online. So I'll give it to you, Michael. It actually has a picture of a tree box and the filter duration.
Right.
So, yeah, the drainage, obviously, is supposed to go into the tree box, and it has certain medium in that. And then at the bottom, it has a pipe that goes off into the lagoon after everything's filtered, is how I understand it. I don't, she also sent me a map, aerial photograph of where the tree boxes were going to be, and there was 15 of them in the downtown area there. You know, what the parking lot is there between downtown and the Indian River Lagoon there, 15 of them scattered along there, some pretty close to City Hall. So I haven't actually seen them myself, but apparently some of them have been built, 50% of them. So that's what I know about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Kay. I'm curious about the amount of shade that we're going to be able to get from one of these boxes. I mean, I think of the streets I grew up with when I would visit my grandmother in Detroit, and there were these elm trees on the boulevards, and you were just in this canopy of trees. And that's kind of what I'd like to see happen here, is that we have a canopy that shields, the concrete and the asphalt as much as possible. You can't do that with a 10-foot tall buttonwood, You're not going to get that 40, 60-foot wide canopy that's going to do the kind of shade that a live oak would do. And I don't know that a live oak would be inadequate or sufficient in these boxes, these tree boxes that we're planting. That's my concern, is that, okay, we've got tree boxes and we're putting in this crepe myrtle or, this.
I share that concern. I think if there's going to be a tree in the boxes, it needs to be a shade tree.
I agree.
That's capable of intercepting rainfall. And, there are other plants that are typically put in tree boxes, and they're responsible for helping to filter the first flush of water that comes off a roadway. But if you want canopy shade, you still, whether you're doing a tree box or just a pit in the sidewalk, you've got to have enough dirt in there and enough drainage for and there's all kinds of specs out there that are easily found. James Urban's Up by Roots. It's all about planting trees in urban environments. So, yeah, I agree with you. I tend, as a landscape architect, to try to do the low-hanging fruit first. And if we can get trees in downtowns with adequate space, that's where the heat island mitigation needs to happen, is the urban core. So I like what Andrew's come up with. Can I comment on a couple things?
Sure, please. Take the floor.
Is it appropriate at this
Yes,
time?
sir.
The GIS systems, there are tools like that, and iTree is another one that's used by the Forest Service, and I think the urban forestry program is going to want to have certain tools to use to inventory trees, keep track of them. They keep track of everything. That's how they prioritize what sort of work needs to happen to the city trees that if Public Works is going to maintain them, what is that based on? It should be based on the notes and recommendations of a forester, an urban forester who's managing the program and establishing priorities for where certain work needs to be done. Trees that are healthy and going gangbusters, probably not much needs to be done, but other trees are not going to be like that. And so that leads to this Mayawaki forest concept. And I think, again, the urban forester, as Andrew said, there are going to be some areas where it's important to plant a lot of trees of different species so that you cover the ground quickly and you do a lot of good things with all those trees coming together. That's another sort of a priority that might get identified by the urban forest manager. Tree boxes. I came from Atlanta in my last gig, and Atlanta was already implementing and requiring in urban areas things like tree boxes. Those tree boxes also had the correct amount of soil to allow those trees to thrive in an urban streetscape. And again, I think if the urban forester said, we really don't have enough canopy shade downtown, how do we improve that? And these boxes, if you will, would be something that my old firm in downtown Savannah, their rodeo drive is Broughton Street. That has been completely retrofitted for tree boxes now. And it's done. You can visit Savannah on Broughton Street and see how those work. Unfortunately, I didn't have anything to do with Chinese elms being planted, but they were. And it's a good urban tree, but it's exotic and it's not native. It grows fast and establishes canopy quickly. But lastly, this public-private partnership, I think that's the way to go. It's not that difficult to sell to get a corporation to partner up with the city to provide funding for all kinds of things. So all of these are really great ideas, and I won't get into the application, but there's all kinds of ways to apply. So I'm all on board with this. I'd be ready, willing, and able to help write this program. I don't know who else would want to help do that. Maybe Andrew or somebody else. Jonathan, excuse me.
You mean you'd be willing to take the two documents and fuse them together?
Why not?
That would be awesome. That would be amazing if you could do that. It would certainly make it easier for us.
I just don't see it. I don't see it getting done in a 1-hour workshop before our meeting.
No. And we also, in addition to combining these two documents, we need to know, legally, where do we stand with the tree mitigation fund? Is it, did the 50% ever get put into legal language? We have no idea. So somebody has to figure out what is the standing. Now that the gateways have been done and most of the money's been spent, do we get all of it now, or do we only get 50%? And if we only get 50%, I think we need to go after the other 50%.
What about the gateway on US 1 coming in from the south? That hasn't been redone.
They only did I-95s. And only the east side of I-95s. They didn't do anything on the west side of I-95. So it's the two I-95 exits, Garden Street and State Road 50, and only on the east side of I-95. And they didn't plant hardly any trees. They planted a Chinese fan palm that appears to be dying, but and a few sable palms. No canopy trees at all. But they said that DOT wouldn't let them plant canopy trees because of visibility, that it would hinder visibility for cars. That's what they said.
Oh, boy.
Can I say something?
Yes, Member Young?
I've complained about it before that my neighbor cut down all their trees in their yard because they didn't want the leaves in a swimming pool. And I says, well, where are you going to get the oxygen to breathe? And I gave you a brochure, a flyer about how much oxygen trees it takes. And I was called stupid because it's more important to keep the leaves out of the pool than have trees for oxygen. So how are you going to overcome this? So we're an environmental committee, so we kind of think that. So you're trying to develop a tree plan, and I showed people my little tree farm, except one or two. And having a tree plan is part of what I have to do. So how do you deal with, you see the politics we have to deal with in dealing with all this of where the money's going and not going. And on the interstate, they plant palm trees rather than shade trees. So if you go to my house next door, you'll see there's two giant oaks in front that supply shade over the road and my house on the sidewalk. Okay, so when they, but other places, when they put new sidewalk, they kill the trees to put the sidewalk in because they don't want to have to mess with the sidewalk. So it's based on the contractor who they hire to do that job. So I stood here and I came to the city council meeting and says, I'm sorry, but you're not cutting down my trees. And they said, okay, we'll not cut down your trees, but they cut down other people's trees to put a new sidewalk in. So the politics of all this is chaos, okay, because everybody has a different belief and feeling. So I'd be glad to help you work on a plan. I already have my plan for my forest, but what I call my forest is a landscape forest. In other words, it's a mixture of trees. It's not just one kind of tree. For those who looked at the book, there's multiple trees because you want them to grow at different species, different times, different environments, and add different nutrients to the ground. So my tree, when you looked at my thing, you have all different kinds of trees in it so that they all help each other grow so they become a community. So you're on the line where to go with this is how we get other people to back us and provide money to this. So we've also talked about conservation easements. So I've given you a picture of my trees, and I've given you not a copy of my plan, but I have a plan and I have a conservation easement. So I have they're not worded like what you would use, but there's something you could use as a guide. So if you want to get copies of them, I didn't give out copies except that thing on how many trees it takes to breathe. And hopefully we can get people to change their minds. Maybe we put a bubble over their house, and if we put a bubble over with no trees, they'll choke and realize they need a tree when they can't breathe. So I don't know how to solve this problem, but I just thought I might mention I've offered up some information if you want more.
I appreciate that. 7 to 8 trees, huh, per person. That's interesting. Member Browning, I'd be happy for you to pick it up and run with it. I'm going to be gone for the months of July, August, September, October. So I'll be gone for 4 months. I've asked the council for a leave of absence. So in my absence, please take it over. Yes, Bill.
You just reminded me, I'm going to go on, I'll be gone July and August too.
You have to turn in your letter to Lily. You have to send her an email so that she can make a formal request to council.
Okay, I'll send it to you.
Okay.
Can you send him a Word version of this?
I think Lily has it. It's obviously included here in our agenda.
Is this a PDF or is this a Word?
You can translate back and forth now. It doesn't matter.
Okay.
Yeah.
When are you going to be gone, Chairman?
We're leaving The 16th, I believe, of June.
Of next month?
Yeah, I'll be here for the next meeting, but I'm leaving the Monday after,
You're gone July through,
October.
Back in November.
Yeah, I'll be available by email. We got a good connection up there, but I just won't be here physically.
so you could read a draft
Absolutely.
and comment?
Actually, I have a question for Lily about that. How, given the sunshine law, do we work on a shared document?
I don't think that's allowed, but I can check if you'd like.
Do we find out from legal, what do we do? How do we go about developing this? Do we do it, send it to you, and then you integrate all the changes, and then that puts a lot of onus on you? Whereas if we had like just a Google Doc that we could all make comments into, that would be different. But
Okay.
I don't know if that's legit.
I have to ask legal.
Yeah, please, thank you.
I submitted a card.
Okay, do we have any cards on the subject?
Okay, St. Ange, yes.
Imagine that. Thank you, Kate.
I think all these ideas that you're considering are really important, really valid, and I encourage you. I wanted to say to Laura Lee and to all of you that I will look up that council meeting that I was at April 8th and tell you what they said the Landscape Trust Fund currently has and what they said about that 50% one way or another. I'll send it out to an email to all of you. March 27th, I was at council meeting when they authorized the mayor to sign the agreement to create an urban forestry master plan. As you know, we got that grant. And then council agreed to match the grant, 50%, $50,000 to match that with money from the Landscape Trust Fund, okay? But at that council meeting, March 27th, when they authorized the mayor to sign the agreement to create an urban forestry master plan, I spoke to them. I also want to interrupt myself. I have the grant proposal right here for that urban forestry master plan, specifying what it is to include. So when I spoke to council about it, I said to them that according to the grant proposal, this plan will implement key findings from the 2023 urban tree canopy assessment. We did get an urban canopy assessment, and it had a lot of information, a lot of data. If you haven't read it, I can send it to you, or she can send it to you. It's available. The tree canopy assessment and all the data that it came up with is really pertinent to the TEC. That assessment, so that the urban forest master plan is supposed to implement the key findings of that 2023 urban tree canopy assessment. That assessment indicates Titusville's trees provide $47 million in annual benefits by absorbing 130 million gallons of water, producing oxygen, reducing pollutants, lowering temperatures, and improving public health. So increased canopy will bring increased health benefits to our residents. The assessment indicates it can be used to identify the best locations on city-owned property to focus future tree planting and canopy expansion. So the urban forest master plan is supposed to identify and implement best locations of city-owned property to plant trees on for canopy expansion. So that's what I'm looking forward to this, you guys. The assessment recommends developing a proactive tree program to plant and manage street trees, and the urban forestry master plan is supposed to implement that. The planting of street trees and management of them to ensure healthy trees are distributed equitably across the city. Our town could certainly benefit from well-placed street trees. As well, the assessment indicates Sandpoint Park's 28 acres are available for sable palms, live oaks, and other native shore stabilization species. So that Mayaca plan could be utilized in Sandpoint Park. I've studied that extensively. So FEMA has been undergoing shoreline stabilization at Sandpoint Park, and once that is completed, then trees could be planted along that peninsula, and I've offered the services. If the city won't do so, the tree team will be happy to plant live oaks. You know they're small, but we're willing to plant trees along there, and so I'm excited about the urban forestry plan. I would think that the city they had a timeline of all the workshops and everything, the citizens' involvement in the urban forestry grant. I assume that's been updated and should be presented to the public pretty soon. I don't know when that's going to be. Maybe you don't? Maybe she'll tell us. I'll sit down and let Lily talk.
Thank you, Kate.
No, she's right. It's actually out for bid right now, and it'll be due on the 29th.
Good.
29th of May. The bid will be.
End of the month. That's good.
Okay. And then after that, we have public engagement and everything, right?
Well, it's,
It goes through the formal bid process, so there's like a selection, and then it starts the actual task that you're talking about.
Yeah.
is to do the
There's all those task items.
Right.
Yeah.
and an implementation plan.
Lily, would you clarify again? I didn't quite hear all that. What is it that's being put out for proposals?
The city's first urban forestry management plan. It's this big thing I brought in. Yeah. It's also that book that I emailed you guys was written by other people who had helped other cities develop plans.
I invited somebody who has a nonprofit that plants trees, and they get donations. Invited them to Kay's planting tree thing, and I invited him to the meeting tonight, but tonight I got an hour before this, I got a call that says he wouldn't be able to make it. But Barry Perry, he has a nonprofit and he plants trees, and he would be glad to bring his organization over here and help us. He was going to come tonight and talk about it, but hopefully he'll make the next meeting.
Okay, so I got a question to Lily, and Member Browning's going to pick up the document, I guess, for this round. Do you want to have an update for us at the next meeting? Send it to Lily a week before?
Yes.
Okay, very good, thank you. Excellent, that'll be wonderful.
Yes.
It's such a broad subject to be able to think about how we can take funds and actually get them implemented all the way to maintenance. Because I've found in my view of the city that maintenance seems to be the one thing that nobody ever thinks about. It's not funded initially, it's just an afterthought, and it never gets done, and that's why we end up redoing things like Scobie Park, because we didn't have any maintenance in plan to keep the place going. And people being what they are, it's sad that we have to redo things. But, okay, if there's no other discussion on this, then we'll move to the bylaws and approve a specific election month. That's kind of where we're at with this after our last discussion. Is there anybody that would like to take off on this one?
I
Member Thompson?
move that we move our election of officers until the month of January.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Okay. Shall we discuss? We had a long discussion about November and December, which we don't meet. And is that a reasonable conclusion that January was okay?
Since I was party to that.
Yes, sir.
And I propose out of share, why don't we do it January? And that had to do with, for those that were not here, that had to do with the fact that we don't control council when they make decisions of appointments. And because of the fact that it was brought up that sometimes they don't even know when our terms are up. And so that happened, I believe, last year. We were party to that, to some extent. And so my thought was, so, well, if they cannot make up their mind, we'll make up ours. And we're gonna pick a month that is gonna be beyond their November, December timeframe. And that's when the new chair and vice chair will be selected. And that, in my mind, may be feeble, but in my mind, that will give us at least a couple of months for them to make up their mind, and we get the new members appointed, and they also get to know everybody and each other, and those that left and those that are staying. And so that was the logic in getting January as a kickoff month. It's not set in stone or cement. It was just something to use a calendar and see if we can get there. So with that, I'll cede the floor for discussion.
Okay. Anybody else have any other suggestions, recommendations? Or shall we call the question? Do you have a question? Please, now's the time.
Does it affect us now where we're sitting now? If like my term expires in November, it won't expire till like January now, or how?
No, the question was, when do we as a commission vote to elect the officers of the
Okay.
commission? When we elect ourselves. So the thought was that it would be better if it was after everybody was appointed, which usually happens in November, usually, which we found isn't always the case. So January it is. Yeah. Member Browning, you're stewing over there. I can see it. Okay. All right, then let's call the question. Can I have a roll call, please?
Member Walter,
Yes.
Vice Chairwoman Thompson,
Yes.
Member Delgado,
Yes.
Member Burdette,
Yes.
Member Browning. Yes. Member Tucker,
Yes.
Chairman Majak.
Yes. Very good. Okay. That leaves us to petitions and requests from the public present. No? Did I miss something? Oh, the 330-300. I didn't see that. All right. Still on item C, 7C now. What do we have in here? I got to scroll down. Okay, the rule sets 3 minimum criteria for urban trees and green space. At least 3 trees in sight of every home, school, and workplace. At least 30% tree canopy in every neighborhood. And no more than 300 meters between every home and the nearest park or green space. It's about a quarter mile. You have a card. Shall we call the cards, please?
Case St. Orange,
Yes.
Okay, first off, thank you for even studying this. I really just never thought it'd be put on the agenda. I just thought you would look at it and find it interesting. So I did a bunch of research and I pulled together some excerpts from the research and everything. And most of this is from a U.S. Forestry Service article entitled Measuring the 330-300 Rule to Help Cities Meet Nature Access thresholds. And also Planet Geo, who did our assessment, they have an article about urban forestry, new benchmark 330-300 rule. So from that, I gleaned this. 330-300 is a set of objective benchmarks for cities seeking to provide their residents with adequate access to nature and the benefits of exposure to natural settings. The goal states that everyone should be able to see at least 3 well-established trees from their home, workplace, or place of learning, have at least 30% tree canopy coverage in their neighborhood, and live within 300 meters or 984 feet of a high-quality public green space of at least 1.2 acres. That's really a wonderful goal. I like it, but it's definitely a goal. Cities can use this rule to determine how they fare on urban green space proximity. So you can use it to evaluate yourself, tree canopy coverage and access, as well as where to target investments for the future. This 3-pronged rule requires multiple measurement strategies. A 2023 study identified 7 main measurement options. How do you determine if you meet these goals? Well, you have to measure. Mr. Delgado believes in measuring. Yeah, and how do you measure? So here's the 7 main measurement options: vegetation indices, street level analysis, tree inventories, questionnaires, window view analysis, land cover maps, urban green space property maps. So questionnaires and window view analysis are used for the 3 component, high resolution land cover maps for the 30 component, and urban green space property map with network analyses for the 300 component. The rule covers 3 types of nature exposure: the ability to see the urban nature from the windows of your home and workplace, living among trees and vegetation in your neighborhood, and accessing a park or green space for recreational purposes. Studies have shown that each type of nature exposure creates varied positive health impacts, and there were pages and pages of that differentiating how each one of these different exposures affects positively your health. This approach leverages a vast and growing literature demonstrating the importance of trees in public green spaces, especially close to where people live, work, and play, for mental health, physical health, and climate adaptation. Views of natural vegetation, the 3 visible tree components, have been shown to help with stress recovery, long-term improvements in people's well-being, enhanced job performance, and more. Tree canopy coverage, the 30% component, is connected with a host of positive associations, such as reducing extreme urban heat. I think that's really important here. Lower all causes of mortality and improve childhood development. The 300 component aligns with the recommendations of the World Health Organization that residents should have access to public green space of at least 1 hectare within 300 meters or 984 feet from their homes, roughly a 5-minute walk away. So that's the World Health Organization saying that that should be stipulated. So the 330-300 rule has been gathering steam since its inception in 2021 and has attracted considerable attention from urban foresters and planners. The United Nations Economic Commission for Europe included the rule in a policy brief, and it's making its way into municipalities such as St. Petersburg, Florida. Adoption of the 330-300 rule will accelerate once measurement strategies become standardized. So that's my little compilation of all these various websites. And if you would like a copy of that, let me know and I'll send it to you. Thank you.
Yes. Any comments? Yes. No?
Well,
What do you think about putting in the 330-300?
Well, we kind of are already there, kind of. We have a tree canopy protection ordinance that gives us 25% tree canopy
Right,
in residential developments.
right.
So it's getting close to the
But only in
30%.
residential, not in
And that's
PUDs
only in
and-
residential, not in multifamily.
And not in PUDs.
And, right.
So
And then-
basically, nobody's building that way anymore.
And then also in our comp plan, one of our goals is to have a park within a 10-minute walk of everybody that lives in the city. That's one of our goals in the comp plan. So that's kind of like the 300 meters, but 300 meters is a lot shorter than a 10-minute walk. But, you know, we're kind of wobbling, you know, towards this.
Well, what I was thinking was we voted to remove, what was it? I forgot, I wrote down the ordinance, I can't find where I wrote it. We voted to remove one thing from city council's meeting, maybe we could put this in place of it. You don't want to get an advisability from them on this?
No, not yet, no. They got enough to talk about. They have enough to talk about on the 27th without us, you know, hitting them in the side of the head with something new that, no. I don't think this needs to go on the 27th.
I agree with Ms. Thompson. You know, the 330-300 principle is applicable in my mind to what the urban forester is doing, which is prioritizing planting areas. And so that's a good thing to have, to know about, if you agree with it, that it helps that person prioritize where we plant trees in the city. That's going to come up in a workshop or something when we have a public workshop to help the new urban forester sort of get a running start. We can bring up this 330-300 rule and make sure that he or she incorporates that into their priorities list.
See, I was thinking of incorporating this more in the comp plan directly, where we were talking 10-minute walk, instead we're saying 300 meters.
Yeah,
But
sure.
remember Walters?
What are we defining as a neighborhood?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
if we're talking distances, we're going to have some sort of definition of what a neighborhood is. You know, I don't see us in this problem now, except for the nearest park or green spaces, but looking forward down the road, yeah, I agree with this, but just said, well, how do we define a neighborhood?
Well, the rule's not actually trying to define the neighborhood. The rule's trying to define how and where trees are laid out within a neighborhood. Well, the question is, what do we do with it from here? Do we want to go forward with it? Do we want to drop it? Do we want to make a motion that we agree with it? What do we do? You're the board.
Well, I think we should just, you know, include this when we get the urban forester person hired, make sure that he is familiar with this concept also. But we can't, we got to pick something to go with. We can't just keep adding stuff and finding a new idea and trying to add that and incorporate. I think we need to define what it is we want and then concentrate on that.
Okay.
I agree. Just like the canopy assessment, it's one of those things that the urban forester needs to look at really close to define how to get off to a running start. And we can recommend the 330-300 rule as part and parcel of things like the canopy assessment that person needs to understand that this is what this community wants. So.
Can I just
Please, yes.
comment that I see this as just another tool to be used for the overall
Right.
plan that we desire.
It just puts a stick in the ground, says this is one thing that we stand for.
Yeah.
This 330-300, you know, and I think by making a motion that this is something that we agree with, and that's something that we carry going forward. If it's something we want city to also adhere to, then we need to make a motion to send it to council as a recommendation. Yes, I would love a motion.
I make a motion that we recommend incorporating the 330-300 rule within a future urban forest program.
Okay. Do I hear a
I'll
second?
second that.
Ah, good. Motion and a second. Now we can discuss like we haven't. Any comments? Member Delgado?
No, it's just a guide
Yeah.
of what
That's it.
we believe our society should develop into.
Mhm.
We're not there yet,
That's right.
okay, but we're trying to get there. So therefore, we put it out there that this is what we believe that Titusville should look like in sometime, Delta time. And so therefore, now we have a guide. You know, the
And we
330,
can develop
300.
benchmarks for it.
Exactly.
Okay.
And so if it's well understood and there is no big deal about it, then it should be adopted as our baseline.
Very good. Anybody else? Nope. Okay, then I guess we'll call the question. We just, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That was easy. It's almost too easy. Thank you, Kay, for bringing that to our attention. Now we can go on to petitions and requests, I think. Oh, well, no, staff updates come after. Yep. Any last comment? Okay. All right, Lily, the show is yours.
Okay, so the semi-annual report will be on your next agenda for the TEC, and then that'll go before council if approved, so I'm just giving you all a heads up. The natural resources plan was adopted by council at the April 22nd meeting, as well as that same day they got their annual report update on the sustainability action plan. That was also added to the website. We also published an LID story map that was added to the website under the land development regulations for developers to use. Also added all of the videos related to the sustainability action plan and its updates to the sustainability section on the website. Added pollution notices from, if you want to sign up for the FDEP notification of pollution, that's now on the website. And the Indian River Lagoon monitoring dashboards is also under programs and resources and sustainability and also available on the website.
Cool.
That's it.
My lights on.
Did you want to tell them about how many people have been using LID?
32% last year.
How about that? In our city. And why was that?
We
What
don't-
did you attribute it to?
It's just a guess, but we talked with MRC and they had questions too, why our community is more likely getting it adopted. They seem to think that the pre-apps help in our developer one-on-ones.
Yep. Getting together with the developer before they turn that final permit in makes a wonderful difference. Thank you for that.
So, Louis, would it be possible for you to send out I'm not sure that we've ever received like the final completed natural resources report, after we made the comments and they came back. And we've got a couple of new members that have probably never seen the natural resources report. So can you send out the final version of that so
Yeah,
that we
I
all
did.
have it?
I did,
That's
You did?
what I
Oh,
thought.
I'm sorry.
on the 2nd. It should be in your emails. And
Okay.
If you haven't gotten it, let me
Okay,
know.
thank you.
But I'll put it on the website too.
Very good.
Great.
Okay, I guess member reports. Shall we? Bill, anything from down there?
I think I kind of said that I invited a tree planting association member here and he didn't come. So I did show you my tree farm and my stewardship conservation easement. If anybody wants to look at it who didn't get to see it earlier, I only made one copy. So if you want to look to see what I've done, I have it here. Thank you.
Good. Member Browning, anything to report? Sir?
Originally, I was going to mention it, but I mentioned it kind of towards the beginning, that we kind of got the results that we wanted out of the fluoride since it's now banned across Florida.
Yeah.
Second state to do it.
Yep.
Let's see, attended a meeting along with Laura Lee on the BMAP for the area, and I think there were some very good comments that were put there and some eye-opening areas that they were not covering. And so maybe we can get something going and bring our friends from across the river into, because they do play, they are getting a lot of launches planned, and that will definitely, the nitrogen especially, will change as you burn RP1, which is what you're going to do.
Well, that's what I understand from Virginia Barker, was that the mass majority of nitrogen found in the North Indian River Lagoon is from atmospheric deposition. That is air pollution,
Absolutely.
100%
Nitric oxide.
Yep.
Which is the residue of burning RP1,
Yep. Kerosene,
kerosene.
lots and
It
lots of
costs more if you
hydrocarbons.
color RP1.
Well, here's, you're talking about RP1, I don't know that besides the Falcon that's going to be much going forward, but even if we go to methane, which is what the super, where's the depot going to go that's going to hold that much methane?
Well,
And then what is that going to produce on the surface of our waters in this area?
right. And also, I brought up the fact to the team that was there, that the fact that the sewage capacity on the Air Force side is going to be increased by over 50%. And they already funded it. It's being funded by Spaceport Florida
Right,
out of a state budget.
yes.
And so where is that effluent going? Because right now, basically, it's a much smaller processing facility.
Right.
And so, and again, depending on how Starship goes, you're going to need a lot of deluge water for Starship. Yeah. And you don't have the ponds capacity because those were not done for that kind of rocket. And so it's going to have to be done. And we have our friends in Blue Origin that also going to be burning methane, and that's another hydrocarbon.
They're also bollocksed up trying to park all those launch vehicles once they come back on drone ships. Where are they going to go? They don't even have
Yeah,
a
port,
garage
the
for
port
that.
is another issue
Yeah.
altogether.
Anyway, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
So, no. But anyway, that's what I was doing last week, and giving comments also for the IRL on the same subject.
Very good. Member Walter, you have anything to report?
Nothing to report, but I'm just, as probably the newest member on this board, I'm impressed the way it moves forward, okay? And the work and the input from everybody in the city that is really concerned. I come from up north and things are run a little different, but, I think we've got a pretty good board here and they move forward.
Good. Member Thompson?
So I took some angels and stuff that belonged to my mom to Gypsy at the Cafe Paradiso. So I came down Mariner Way, and I hadn't really come down Mariner Way in a while, and I was shocked to see the condition that all of those Sylvester palms are in. They all seem to have lethal bronzing. So are we just gonna let them sit there for another year until they all look like folded down umbrellas before we cut them down? Or what's the city's plan on all of those Sylvester palms that are infected with lethal bronzing? And the ones on US 1 don't look too good either. So we've got a problem with lethal bronzing in the Sylvester palms in downtown Titusville.
I noted that when we were driving out to Orlando earlier this week, that on the north side of Highway 50, from just beyond the great outdoors, almost all the way to the St. Johns River, all of the palm trees within 100 feet of the road north were all dead. The south side's fine. The trees beyond 100 feet to the north are all fine over in the St. John's Preserve. But right there along the road, it's almost like someone had systematically sprayed every single one of the cabbage palms along the way. They're all brown, every one of them. And I don't know if that was done by St. John's, the people that manage that, or whom, but I just thought it was atrocious, and it was indiscriminate. It was just those palms. And
You think it's something moving?
I don't know. If it was something like this bronzing disease and it was moving with traffic, and somehow, but why would it only be on the north side? It should have been on the south side of the road. It's a wide open area, and that didn't make any sense to me. Anyway.
The other thing I wanted to say is regarding the oyster bags at Scobie Park, I spoke with Tyler at the zoo, and he said that the zoo will remove those oyster bags if we can get permission from UCF, and so Lily's already been in an email discussion with Dr. Walters at UCF, so UCF is like, fine, yeah, just if you have any oysters that are live that you run across, put them back in the water. But they're okay, but now the water levels come back up, so we're probably gonna have to wait until next winter to do it. But we do have a commitment from the Brevard Zoo that they will use their personnel to remove those oyster bags. I was very happy about that.
Yeah, that would be good. Member Tucker? Nothing to report? Sure.
For those of you that go by the Maxwell Bridge, the rays are back.
The rays?
The little manta rays.
Oh,
Oh,
Okay, and that's a,
cow nose rays is what those are.
count
those are-
those,
those are-
yeah.
I call them rays.
Yeah.
Okay, but they're
Yeah.
back. If you get
Cool.
on the edge, going up towards the top of the bridge,
Uh-huh.
you can see them on
Right
the
in the
sand side,
Nice.
on the
That's
south
cool.
side. And
I bet
you-
they like all that new
and
sand that's on the
since
south
I go
side.
there just about every day, I've been counting anywhere between 10 and 15 of them alongside the bridge. So it's an event that happens along with the mullet runs and the horseshoes
Yeah.
and all that. And so if you want to see some earthwork also on the south side, they've extended the beach a good 30 feet, 40 feet. And so that should help.
Yeah, it should. Yeah, it's funny when you come over the bridge and you see those palm trees in the middle of the sand. Well, where those palm trees are sticking up out of the sand, that's where the shoreline was.
Exactly.
And all those ugly rocks and everything, it's all gone. It's
All
all,
gone.
it's,
Right.
it's wonderful.
They brought a lot of dirt.
Yeah, it's gonna be really good.
Anyway.
The only thing that I had to report was that the environmental assessment on the Falcon, doubling the number of launches, is still open through the 15th if you have any comments that you'd like to make. We've made some from the roundtable, mostly referencing the sustainability issue, the fact that they only look at current and not the impacts that they have, not cumulative impacts around them. I think it was the different EA on the Atlas. They're going to be doing 3 launches, or launch every 3 days, and they're planning on using 160,000 gallon pond to do their 100,000 gallon deluge. But the question is, can the pond recover in 3 days? And where does the water go after they've used it? It's fresh water, and it's going into an estuary, which obviously, unbeknownst to the St. Johns River Water Management District, too much fresh water in an estuary is not a problem, and yet that's that's the situation that we have. They don't look at it as an estuary being different because it's brackish. They look at it as just fresh. And that's wrong. And as long as we continue to look at that in the wrong way, our BMAP and our solution is going to be wrong. So garbage in, garbage out.
And that was an interesting report too that Lily sent out. You guys need to look at that. But that was a noise report from the Falcon 5th and 6th launch, not the Falcon, the
Super
Starship.
Heavy. It was
The
Starship.
5th and 6th, the comparison of the noise level from launch number 5 and 6. And there is a map in there, and most of the city of Titusville is within
100 dB.
an area where you can have damage to buildings from the rocket launches.
Yeah, most of the city is within the 100 decibel range, and a good portion of the southern part of the city from about, I'd say halfway from downtown to Highway 50 and south, all of that is within 110 dB, which is definitely enough to cause structural damage, broken windows, things off the wall, that kind of stuff. So it's a lot, and the study, I also should point out, the study was for a perfect launch. No problems, no extra humidity, no easterly breeze to blow the sound. I mean, all of these things compound. You know how some rocket launches are louder than others, right? We're not new to this, so we understand. And that none of those things were, those conditions were not considered in this. This is just a perfect launch, straight here. This is what it's going to sound like in a perfect condition. And it could be as much as 20% more and wider. So, yes.
And by the way, that data came from Boca Chica, Texas.
Yes, directly.
It did not come from here. Spaceship has not launched from here. It will next year, more than likely. So we'll get to see.
And here.
And here, or not. And we'll see how much water they determine. Because we got to understand, the first launch from Boca Chica did not have deluge water, and they almost blew up their pad.
They did blow up their pad.
Well, okay. I was giving them a little credit, since I do know them. But they did have a lot of damage. And came close to blowing their methane tanks and very ugly stuff. And the hold down for the rocket got damaged severely. And so they had to spend a lot of money and effort to do a deluge system, even though they were told they need one. And to give you a comparison, Pad A has a 300,000 gallon water tank that was built for the shuttle program. Not because of the noise, it was to keep the vibration away from the tiles so that the tiles would not suffer. And that helped, of course. So we dumped 300,000 gallons on big Rainbirds by brand, they donated it, onto the mobile launcher. And it went into the ponds that were built there before. So more to come on that. They're gonna have to somehow capture that water that they're gonna put, and they're gonna need over much more than 300,000 by all.
We figure 500,000 is.
Right. So.
Lots of changes coming. Welcome to Florida. Anything else? Going once? Bill, yes.
I saw you at the meeting last night, city council meeting,
Yeah.
and after you left, the police gave a police report about speeding in the school zones. And some of the schools have 4,000, 5,000, 7,000 cars driving by, and they were giving a report of how many were speeding. So I got up and said, well, if the city keeps approving more development and you keep adding more and more people to the city, your numbers will go from 7,000 to 10,000 speeders at a school zone. And if your police department is upset that they can't control the speeding, they're scared of people and children getting hurt from so much crowding, that the traffic is so bad on the roads in front of the schools that they can't control the safety of the children. I said, well, wait until you, city council, approve even more development and you have more people here. See what happens then. I just thought I'd let you know I made that comment. I'm not sure I'll be back on this committee again after that.
Point well made. Lovely article, Lily. Was this from you, this one on the enchanted forest in the middle of the talking points?
No, actually, I don't.
That was really, really nice to see. Anyway, thank you. All right, we're adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Sorry, you had item 11 was on
I have
this.
item 11. It's on, oh, it didn't make it on my hard copy.
It made it.
What, if anything, would you kind folk like to add to our agenda next month?
Well,
Open table.
the combined version of the Native Municipal Tree Canopy and Landscape Management Trust Fund
Yeah.
document should be done by then.
Yes.
I imagine we'll be spending quite a bit of time on that.
Yeah, that should be on the agenda for
Yeah.
sure. But we're done with the bylaws, so that can finally go.
Do we know if there is an arborist on staff at the Public Works, or?
I believe we have a
Supposedly
couple
there's two,
arborists that work for the city.
but they're so busy doing other stuff, they can't
They're
do
not doing
their
our
art,
tree
they're not
canopy or-
doing arbor